Hello class, sorry I couldn't be with you there today, but instead what I've decided to do is set up a video lesson so you guys can follow along and learn about the myths of the Greek heroes today, even in my absence. Our aims for today are to discuss who were the Greek heroes, what is a hero in Greek mythology versus a hero today, and what tools can help us organize great amounts of information. That one is going to come into play as we get nearer to dealing with the glossary at the end of the period. We're going to start by looking at what makes someone a hero. So for your due now, I would like you to do a quick write, 5 to 10 minutes max, where you write non-stop about what makes somebody a true hero. Discuss a hero that you admire, defending and describing what makes them a hero. Think about it from your perspective and give reasons to back it up. Later, we're going to look at how our modern definitions of hero compare against the classical definitions of Greek heroes from the mythology and put the two together. Okay, do that right now and then we'll continue. Now that you've finished your quick writes, I'd like you to pair up together with somebody from your group or somebody sitting close with you and share what you've written. See and compare your answers to theirs about what makes a hero. After you discuss for a couple of minutes, we'll get back together again and I'm going to make some predictions about what you talked about. I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess a few different things that you might have talked about while you were discussing or that you wrote in your quick writes. You probably mentioned that a hero is somebody that sacrifices themselves for others. You might have also mentioned that heroes are usually strong, powerful, whether it's physically powerful or mentally or emotionally powerful. Heroes usually have some kind of great strength that we admire. You might have also mentioned someone from your family, somebody that you know personally that's gone through great adversity. We often admire people who have been through incredible challenges as heroes. You might have listed things like soldiers, policemen, and firefighters, people that put themselves, again, in harm's way in order to do something for the greater good. Many of our definitions of heroes might also include fictional characters, so you might have brought up characters like Superman or Batman, people from your favorite movies. Your favorite characters were heroes, do great, powerful, heroic deeds, and save the day, end up winning, and, success. Stop recording now. Stop. Stop recording. You might have guessed our classical definition for what a hero is, especially the heroes from ancient Greek mythology, is going to be a little bit different than the way we conceive of heroes today. But don't imagine for a second that these figures, these heroes of Greek mythology, are not still part of our culture today. They've wormed their way throughout the ages and made their way into becoming an important part of our storytelling and the way we imagine heroes in our mind's eye, especially for fictional characters, I've noticed. So, what is a hero in the classical definition? Well, I'd like you to have this information in your notes. So, I'll wait and you go ahead and take out your notebooks. Okay, this is what I'd like you to have in your notes. In mythology and legend, a hero is a man or a woman, often of divine ancestry, which means they were descended from the gods, who is endowed with great courage and strength, celebrated for their bold exploits, their heroic deeds, and are favored by the gods. That means there's at least one god out there looking out for them. So again, in mythology and legend, a man or a woman, often of divine ancestry, who is endowed with great courage and strength, celebrated for his or her bold exploits, and favored by the gods. Now we know some, even without going into our mythology book, I'm sure some names stand out. Perhaps you remember the name of Hercules or Achilles, famous heroes that have been handed down through the generations. We're going to read the myth of Odysseus today. So clicking on the link on Moodle just after these videos, I'd like you to visit a website called mythweb.com and visit the Heroes section. In it we're going to find an animated story of the hero Odysseus from Homer's great epic work, the Odyssey. I almost forgot. There are going to be a couple of different options when you get to this site. You could read the short version of the myth, or you can read the detailed version of the myth and get lots of specifics. I don't really have any specifications. If you're a fast reader or you really enjoy the myths, go ahead and read through the detailed version. The bulk of the information will be there. You should be able to take the quiz afterward on Moodle without a problem. When you're finished reading through these myths, you can then go on to the Moodle site and take the quiz. Well, if we define a hero as a selfless soul out there to help somebody else and put themselves on the line for the greater good, Odysseus doesn't really qualify. I mean, sure, he's powerful and he's smart. He's defeated monsters. He came back to his beloved wife after 20 years of journeying at sea, after an incredible battle that lasted for years. But is he really the kind of hero that you wrote about in your quick writes? I think he fits the bill in some ways, in that Odysseus is a powerful character that has many strengths of courage and bravery. We did notice that from our classical definition. We also noted that a hero is somebody that is favored by the gods. Now, if you remember, Odysseus is favored by Athena. If we know the backstory, or if you read the detailed version of the myth, you'll know that part of the reason is because Athena was on the side of the Greeks during the Battle of Troy, while Poseidon was on the Battle of the Trojans. While Athena continues to protect Odysseus, we see the results of that in a horrible, bloody catastrophe at the end, when all these suitors that have been waiting on Penelope for 20 years to say, okay, your husband's not coming back. I've got a lot to offer. Okay, nothing to it. Odysseus and Telemachus show up, they raid the party, fool the suitors, and end up taking their vengeance on all of them. Now, not really something Superman would do, but there are some similarities to our modern conceptions of the superhero. I told you when we began this unit that you would start to see aspects of our myths popping up in all sorts of places. Well, one I would like to take a look at right now is the way that heroes from Greek mythology have wormed their way into our modern day superheroes from comics and from movies. Take a look at the PowerPoint presentation that is listed on Moodle after this activity. Some of you I know are incredibly bright and very fast workers, so what I'm offering is an opportunity to help me out. After you've finished reading through the myth of Odysseus, taking the quiz on Moodle, and exploring the PowerPoint and its assignment on Moodle, I'd like you to contribute to our classroom glossary. I've opened up a mythology glossary on Moodle, which will allow you to update it with the names of characters, creatures, heroes, gods, monsters, and all sorts of stuff from the myths that we've been reading into a glossary to help explain it for other students and for yourself. This is going to be a data storage device. We're essentially taking mass amounts of information, each one of us doing a little piece, and in our contributions to the knowledge, we'll develop a huge database where quickly we can locate information, especially about the myths, and review and come to know certain aspects very well. So, if you are completed with your other assignments, instead of just sitting there like a log, I'd like you to please help me contribute, help contribute by uploading a couple of new entries into this mythology. You can get the information from the web, you can get the information from your book, or you can get it from your memory, but if you are taking information from an outside source, you do need to cite it. Make sure you write which website you're getting it from, and check the resource to make sure it's accurate. Don't use some rinky-dink site from no place that you don't know if it was written by somebody with authority or just another student. Okay, we want to be as accurate as possible for our glossary. No misspellings if we can avoid it. No faulty information. Okay? Be sure when you do update to this glossary, there's going to be an opportunity for you to add keywords. Keywords are key. Okay, that was terrible. Keywords are important because they were going to help us organize this information so when people do searches for it later on, they can locate all the different articles that have to do with it. So let's say you did an entry on Pandora. You might want to put keywords for Pandora, keywords for Zeus, keywords for Epimetheus, keywords for Hermes and spirits and evil and whatever you can think of that somebody searching for those terms might be interested or might be able to use Pandora for. We also talked about those different nature myths in light of modern concerns and modern problems. Don't be afraid to mention some of the things that we talked about in these glossaries to give people a heads up. Okay, this is it. I hope you guys have had an enjoyable lesson and that we didn't lose a beat even though I wasn't there today. If you were not able to accomplish everything I had set out for you today, I do suggest that you go on and take a look at the myth of Odysseus, take the quiz at home for homework, or upload to our glossary. I'm not requiring you to upload to the glossary at this time, but if you do, it's going to make things a lot better for the class as a whole, and I will give you class participation credit for it. Lastly, make sure to review for a quiz on the heroes and the nature myths, so that's Pandora, Phaethon, Prometheus, Orion, and of course, one of the Greek heroes, which you're going to read tonight. You can choose between Theseus, Perseus, Daedalus, and Atalanta. Okay? I'm only requiring that you read one, but I want you to be a real expert on it. So tomorrow you'll be ready for our day's lesson. Okay? That's all. See you guys tomorrow. Here's a preview of the myth of Perseus. Acrisius sent to the oracle at Delphi, and the messenger returned with this prophecy. Your daughter will bear a son who will one day kill you. Acrisius had the messenger beheaded for bringing bad news and retired to his throne room to continue his brooding. The auguries of the Pythoness are supposed to be immutable, he said to himself. But are they? How can they be? What if I were to slay my daughter now while she is still childless? How then could she have a son to kill me?
But must I kill her to keep her childless? Is it not sufficient to forbid her male company all her days? Would I not be accomplishing the same purpose without calling upon my head the vengeance of the gods? Yes, that is a much better plan. Thereupon he shut the beautiful young girl in a brass tower, which he had specially built with no doors and only one window, a slit too narrow for a child to put an arm through. The tower was surrounded by a high-spiked wall patrolled by armed sentries and savage dogs. Here Acrisius locked his daughter away, and so murderous was his temper in those days that no one dared ask him what had become of the laughing young girl. Acrisius stayed away from the tower and waited for someone to bring him word that his daughter had died, but the news he was waiting for did not come. Here's a preview of the myth of Theseus. Theseus stooped. There was a huge brute of a man facing him. He was called Pitiocamptes, which means pine bender. He said to Theseus, "Just hold this for a moment like a good fellow, will you?" "Certainly," said Theseus. Theseus grasped the pine tree, let his mind go dark, and all his strength flow forward, anchoring him to the earth like a rock. Pitiocamptes let go of the tree, expecting to see Theseus fly into the air. This is Looney Tunes style. Nothing happened. The giant could not believe his eyes. He leaned his head closer to see. Then Theseus let go. The tree snapped up, catching the giant under the chin, knocking him unconscious. Theseus bent the tree again, swiftly bound the giant's wrist to it. He pulled down another tree and tied Pitiocamptes' legs to that, and then let both pines go. They sprang apart. Half of Pitiocamptes hung from one tree, half from the other. Theseus wiped the pine tar from his hands and continued on his way. A preview from the myth of Atalanta. Atalanta was a powerful fighter because she had been adopted by the she-bear, raised in the bear's cave and treated like a cub. She had grown up among successive litters of bear cubs, wrestling with them, hunting with them. She had grown into a gloriously tanned, supple, fleet-footed young woman, strong as a she-bear herself. Wrestling Meleager seemed an easy matter to her. She planned to crush him in her hug and hurl him over the cliff. Then Meleager and Atalanta began to wrestle. As she struggled, she found she could no longer know where his body ended and hers began. When she realized this, it seemed to her that the fragrance of the crushed grass rose like a sweet fog, making her dizzy. She found her knees buckling. She, who could run miles up the steep slope of a mountain, outrunning even the mountain goats, felt her legs weakening. Her last thought, as her mind swooped and darkened, was, "It's magic. He's doing some magic. He's fighting me with magic." When her head cleared, she found they were sitting with their backs against a twisted olive tree near the edge of the cliff and looking out onto the great gulf of blueness where a brown eagle soared. Their arms were still about each other as if they were wrestling, but their bodies were still. She was telling her name. "I am Atalanta. I belong to this mountain, to the clan of mountain bears." "I am Meleager," he said. "I belong to Atalanta." Review from the myth of Daedalus. So Icarus, full of strength and joy, blood flaming in his veins, stretched his homemade wings and climbed up after the swan. Up, up, up he flew. The air seemed thinner, his body heavier. The sun was swollen now, filling the whole sky, blazing down at him. He couldn't see any more than he had before. He was dazed with light. Closer, he thought. Higher. Closer. Up and up. He felt the back of his shoulders growing wet. Yes, he thought, this is hot work. But the wetness was not what he supposed. It was wax. Melting wax. The bonds of his wings were melting in the heat of the sun. He felt the wings sliding away from him. As they fell away and drifted slowly down, he gazed at them, stupefied. It was as if a great golden hand had taken him in his grasp and hurled him towards the sea. The sky tilted. His breath was torn from his chest. The diamond-hard sea was rushing toward him.